So CNN style here.
I know.
Wow.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of While You're Working Live. We appreciate you all tuning in last weekend and then coming back this week. We've switched things up a little bit, and we've got a really exciting episode for you planned this week. Chip is on spring break, that lucky duck. And so I brought in a couple extra guests with me this week, and I'm really excited to talk to them about chatbots. With me today, I've got John Durham, CEO of Catalyst San Francisco. He's also, I've heard, a avid wine collector. And he also he's also a professor at the University of San Francisco. John, thanks for joining us.
And good morning. How are y'all? How are you?
We're great. Thank you for joining. I'm excited to talk to you today. And I know you've got a really great reputation with my other guest, James Loomstein, managing partner of Rogue Marketing, and he's Chip's partner, and so we're excited to have him on today to also talk about chatbots. James is not only the managing partner, but he's also an adjunct professor at SMU. I don't know that he's an avid wine collector like John, but I'm sure he has some other talents up his sleeve that we're not aware of.
Probably an avid wine drinker. Sports fan.
Always a good thing.
Collector
and sports fan.
And drink. And sports
That's
fans.
awesome. Well, I wanted to just jump right into things today, kind of get y'all's thoughts on our topic. The first thing is just kind of interesting. What is a chatbot? When I first hear the name chatbot or the word chatbot, I think of just some automated robot that's talking to me through some type of messaging platform. Is that too narrow of a thinking for me as a marketer, or do you think this is pretty much the curve and where everybody's standpoint is at? John?
I think it's probably a baseline to begin. I think the interesting thing, if you go out and talk to people on the street and you ask them what a chat box is, the first thing they say is, I got Alexa, or I have Google Home, and therefore they think they're safe, and they think they know what a chat bot is because they have Alexa. That's just the average consumer. For marketers, I do believe that you set the baseline, and I think a step above is that it's a fascinating way to interact with customers.
I agree. I think it's only set to grow as the technology behind it gets better and smarter, and as more brands and businesses start to adopt a little bit more. James, what are your thoughts?
I would say from a Facebook perspective, Facebook Messenger, I don't think you're wrong. I think that it's a fast growing emerging channel. I think that if you look back at when they were introduced, 2015, 2016, that as soon as Facebook is like, we're adding chatbots to Messenger, you saw this explosion of growth. And you are only utilizing, let's call it 1% to 2% of a chatbot capacity of what it's actually capable of. And I kind of equate it to the way communication is and how we talk and talk to each other. So if you look at the iPhone, when that came out, we're using 1% to 2% of that capacity in a 2007 world, and how far we've come and evolved in 2017, 2018, the implementation of voice. And I think that you'll see chat doing the next thing over the next 2, 3, 4, 5+ years.
So James, I would ask you that question. How much, if you think we use 1% to 2% of the iPhone, how much do you think we use now? Where do you think that level of percentage is?
I think it's jumped with voice. I think that has been a big one. The introduction of Siri, the adoption of other like iPhone Watch, I think has been a big one. Connectivity, broadband, 5G coming. I think those are the things that have pushed it to, let's call it like 30, 40, 50% of its utilization.
It's an interesting take on it. I think that through all these technologies, there's always those super early adopters that are going to explore it and take it on as either a market or consumer. And so we're only set to continue growing in that. In that same vein, though, do you think that this is going to, sometimes when new technologies like this come out, I feel like either marketers, or if it starts to be a trending topic, they think it's going to be the new silver bullet to all their problems. Do you think that this chatbot technology, because it's a super hot trend right now, everybody was talking about it, social media marketing world last week or the other week whenever I was there, do you think it's actually going to turn into the true like main alternative to marketing automation? Is it going to take over email?
I think it's an and strategy, and I think it's evolving. I don't think it's a either or strategy. So if you look at email and marketing automation and how that was originally designed, marketing automation was simply designed to execute marketing communication at scale. Like, I have one email, instead of sending it one by one, I'm sending it to thousands or hundreds of thousands. But now people have changed marketing automation to really be like sales enablement and sales marketing, where you're literally relying on these systems to carry people through the entire conversion process, like through that journey, and how you push people from a yes or a no or a micro yes or a micro no, like to a decision point. And so I think that when you take chatbots, you're just literally layering on one more mechanism in which to talk and communicate with your audience.
I agree with that. I think the fear of missing out, that whole FOMO thing that some marketers always worry about, this is not one they're going to be concerned, because I definitely agree that it's the and. Mm-hmm. Every marketer that's even semi-sophisticated is realizing that this is something we have to consider. Where is it in the journey? Customers are getting very comfortable with it. And because it's so nascent right now, that it's actually very opportunistic for the next 2 to 3 years to be able to do everything you can to get involved. But I think the idea of this being a one and done is not going to happen.
And so if I could also add to that, I think if just to provide some context, like how companies could, or maybe where the opportunities are, whether it's top of the funnel with lead acquisition and adding users as a communication tool, also using chatbots as a bottom of the funnel in terms of a funnel, or bottom of the funnel for retargeting, or even able to push people into a buying decision. So using it as a conversion optimization tool. So people who are trying to overcome a buying objection, for example. But those are just a couple of like tactical ways it could be used. I don't think we live in a world where you're letting a chatbot decide where you're playing, top of the funnel, middle, or bottom. I think that information is actually being dictated before you start. And then you're saying, hey, we're going to use chatbots for bottom of the funnel, overcoming objections, or we're going to use chatbots for adding people to our email subscriber list.
And I've seen some literature that absolutely bears that out. And also from the bottom, thinking about that post-purchase sense of satisfaction. Several marketers are using it as a tool to, like, are you a satisfied customer? Do you have a concern? There's always been this fear that some people have about returning products or making calls, or that sense of, I want to deal with somebody impersonal. Chatbots actually can make people feel good. And we know the most critical part of any satisfied customer is that post-purchase, what's PPD, post-purchase dissonance. And I think that's something that several good marketers are really looking at as a tool to work back up that journey.
Absolutely. I think that's such a great point, because just last week on our episode, we were discussing how, marketers or just campaigns, there's so much emphasis on the first part of it, the setting it up, the implementation, the launch, and all that. But then the really meaty, juicy part of that has legs is the after part. So showing users that are satisfied with your product or service, touching base with them again, and making sure that they are actually going to, be that brand advocate that you're wanting, and you don't even have to, do anything for it other than be great at customer service and also have a great product. So I think that's a really great point about chatbots helping with that particular aspect.
There's one other side where, it's heavy B2B, but there's also B2C opportunities, engagement opportunities. On one extreme, you could take WordStream did a great article about how entertainment was leveraging chatbots and messaging. Their example was Guardians of the Galaxy, with having opportunity where you would go in and kind of dictate what would happen to your superhero, how they would make decisions, and you could interact and engage with them through that medium. When I was a kid, you had to go and buy choose your own adventure books and choose. You have turn to page 17, but now you can actually do that through automation.
Research with a car client about how chatbots can be a part of that screen. Mm-hmm. Going forward and thinking about the car experience. I'm fascinated by the car screen. Yeah. So the idea of interaction with the chatbot could be very interesting.
That's cool. I know banks are a big thing right now, and how they are. Capital One was one that just came out, I think, the other week officially with their, I guess, use of chatbot technology, and they were making digital, credit, like debit card numbers that people could use for online purchases. It's not only supposed to be easier on the user, but it's safer too with these this use of this technology. So interesting things that brands are doing and really taking on this new technology and embracing it. I think that, with new technology, though, also comes things that marketers should be a little wary of, too, or at least not wary of, but something to think about as they take on this new technology. Have you guys seen anything in your firsthand experience or just other brands doing that you think that marketers could benefit knowing a little bit more about, or just keeping in mind as they take on this new chatbot technology and develop it for their own business?
I saw James the other day made a post about some questions that venture partners should be asking, or an entrepreneur should be asking about getting in business. And I think I responded rather cavalier to you that the only one that matters is number one. And I truly believe that. Just to have a chat bot because you want to check the box is not a sophisticated 2018 policy. You're not going to go around chest beating that I have a chat bot. It is going to be, does it fit your strategy? Does it make sense? Is it important? And I think if we've learned anything in the last 10 years, I think are now realizing, and James, you may agree or disagree, that they have to ask the right question. Is this relevant? Is this important for our audience? Will they use it? Will this enhance my brand, or do I look like, the new shiny tinsel? I personally think that it is so nascent and so opportunistic. I think we're about 2 years away from seeing them really grow and really flourishing. But I do think you have to ask the right question. What's in it for the user? Why are we doing this?
That's great. I think that's exactly the right question that a business should ask before, using it as their end strategy and weaving it into their current strategy. How is this going to enhance the user experience at the end of the day? And if not, then it's maybe not a technology you should move forward with. James, you look like you're really excited to say something.
I would echo that sentiment, and then also say it's about prioritization and choice. That if you're implementing chatbots or a messaging strategy, there is an expense to that, whether it is human capital or a fixed cost and investment. But doing that at the sake of something else is probably a bad business decision in a 2018, 2019 world. So if you were saying, we're going to do chatbots and Messenger and have people be there, but I'm going to pull back from content or not run as much paid media or drop back on my broadcast to pay for it, then that only exacerbates your problem more. It does not fix and it does not move the business forward. And then I would also say that in a 2018, 2019, 2020 world, it's around, you have two choices to use with chatbots. I don't think we live in a sophisticated world where chatbots are able to do both. So you are either using chatbots for discovery. So people are coming in, it is product alternative, it is a substitute, it is, hey, you might also like, or it is a customer service function that is there to triage high and low priority, that is allowing human beings and human capital to be great at what they do by concentrating their efforts on the things that really matter to the business and pushing lower priority things back out to their original source, web or otherwise. Like, this level of technology has been around for a long time. It's been a basic decision tree when you would call up American Airlines in 1980 and say, push 1 for domestic and 2 for international, or call MoviePhone and, what movie do you want to see, right? Mm-hmm. Or what's the weather in Cleveland today? So like, this process has been around for 40, 50, 60 years. We're just layering it on to, a technology in a web format.
Now, hearing kind of a couple things that both of you just said, I'm curious to know, little music interruption there. So both of you have mentioned that you think chatbots are a really great and strategy, and they're good for customer service and that kind of stage of the marketing funnel. Mm-hmm. What I'm kind of wondering is if marketers are even really ready for this. Just a thing that has come up in rogue marketing in general recently is just, how do you respond in real time to social media messages? How do you get that past the, HR appropriate language? How do you make sure that it's approved by, the CMO and all the above, but still do it in a manner that seems real and timely? It's kind of a little bit of a struggle. So how do you think that chatbots could possibly solve this or not in the customer service department?
I think it's executive buy-in and companies, personnel who believe in the internet as a tool and a mechanism in which to communicate with their audiences. If they don't believe, or it is an afterthought, or we will get to Facebook later, or I will follow up on the comments on this user board at another time, but what matters today is X, then it doesn't matter what the technology is. Like, it matters that the organization is putting their attention to where people are spending their time and using that as using that to communicate with their users.
I share that. I mean, I think it's 100% right. If someone is not digitally savvy, and I can't imagine someone not thinking about it, they're answering the fundamental question. Chatbots is a tool in that, but if they're not focused on digital communication and response and understanding the nuances of today's customer, I'm not even sure chatbots is the least of their problems.
Probably very true. Agree. Okay, so next kind of thought is put yourself in the shoes of a traditional, marketing manager, director of marketing. What's a word that you would use to describe what this kind of new technology is currently to them? If you could just sum it up in one word.
I've got two.
Okay.
Two. Fascinating and perplexing.
Okay.
I have two. Mine is called "and strategy." So like layering on top.
That's a phrase. Those are technically two words to go together.
Okay. Well, I'm putting them together. And dash strategy. And
strategy. John, why do you say those two words? And have you just heard that from marketers, or you're just kind of getting the general sense of that's how they're feeling about it?
Well, in talking to a few people about it, here everybody, brands and all talk about everything. They're perplexed. What is it going to mean? Is the fascination with voice? How real is it? Is it a fad? More important, how does it fit into, I think James hit it, how does it fit into our overall strategy? I like the and dash, I actually like that. Challenging is the fact that I got to think about it. I mean, as chatbots assume some sense of, humanity to them and being able to answer and get people involved in product and new product and thinking, as well as all the way down through customer service, how does this fit? And I mean, I like the and strategy. So I think it's both perplexing and challenging and opportunistic.
If a business is perplexed and they're interested and they're wanting to use this as an and strategy, do you have any advice for them on how to think about it in a way to implement into their strategy? I think it seems like a little bit of it's daunting to add something into your strategy if you're not fully sure how it's going to function. And some of the resources and articles out there right now are saying they're kind of polarized opinions. Some of them are saying big brands are really loving it, like a Capital One, and they're going full throttle with it. Other brands, can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but other ones tried it with Facebook Messenger, and they ended up dropping it because they couldn't quite figure out how to use it with their user. People are thinking it was inauthentic, and they couldn't quite control it.
So my thought to that is, how do you leverage technology or a channel dependent on where people are in your customer journey? So how you talk and engage with people at awareness is way different than consideration or purchase or retention or advocacy. And so I think the first thing, so your example of like, hey, we implemented Facebook Messenger, it didn't work. But okay, it didn't work for you. But at what point were you putting it in the customer journey? Were you using it as a mechanism for awareness? Were you using it as a mechanism for loyalty and advocacy? Was it about consideration or purchase? Like, it's the intent of where that user is, and then deciding which channel, which platform are we going to leverage for that part of the customer journey. Because simply saying that I'm going to use Facebook for all of it, like, it doesn't work. Just like using Google for all of it doesn't work. So there's 1,000 channels out there. All of them work, but they all work at specific parts of that journey process. And chatbots and Messenger is really no different.
I know this makes me crazy, but James and I didn't agree ahead of time on any of that. I totally agree. I think sometimes we as marketers forget we're also customers. We're also users. How do we want to be talked to? Where do we want to be talked to? When are we and where are we in the journey? You know, I know some brands who, I've used Facebook Messenger. And, well, it didn't work. Why didn't it? Well, it didn't do what it was supposed to do. It didn't do this. Are you asking the right questions? You know, maybe at the time, people just, this new shiny object, this is not a new shiny object. This is a very real, critical tool that can be a successful part of any marketer, but they have to ask that question, where in that journey does this work well? And look at users, look how users use it. I think Capital One, you know, you've referenced that a couple of times. There was a big story in one of the trades that somebody was spelling balance. People called and wanted, what's my balance? And it was spelled NEG. They were able to respond to it instead of BAL. They were able then to recognize NEG as a request for balance.
Huh.
As simple as that sounded, that left a satisfied customer.
Yep.
And someone not talking to a human, which allowed the human to go work on a higher escalating, higher priority opportunity.
I agree. Those are some interesting points. So I think that brings us to one of our last questions in predicting the future. Chatbots is one technology that is big. Voice search is also coming up. You mentioned Alexa earlier, John, and how marketers are really curious about that technology as well. And should they implement, should they not implement it? How is this going to work, and how is this going to fit into my strategy? So give me a 2 to 5 year looking ahead on a few of these technologies and where you see them being useful or dying for this industry.
I think a lot about 2020. What's the world going to look like July 1, 2020? For some reason, that just has an interesting ring to it. I'm fascinated with Eva, the voice assistant technology. We use it in meetings. It captures notes, which allows a lot of us then to be more engaged in the meeting to make sure we still have our takeaways. I think chatbots, voice assistants, I'm fascinated with voice. Voice is, for some people, they're like discovering voice. Like, wow, this is really a new thing. Mm-hmm. Personalization, the opportunity that I think that James said, which I think is really true, that allows humans to have better ways to think about working with their customers along this journey. I think we're at such a nascent phase that by 2020, it is going to be an integral part, I'll use your phrase, and dash strategy. It will be written in the strategy line.
I also think in that short time period of what's in 18, 24 months, I think we're using chatbots we're still using them for a specific function. We are deciding, hey, this is, for example, customer service or product discovery. I think when you go out a little further than that, you're 24 to 36 months, you're probably getting better at chatbots being able to be available for both, and then having that intelligence to recognize what people are there for and what objective they're trying to achieve. And then moving out from there, probably within 5-7 years, I would say you're taking things that are used at Capital One or Marvel, or a big film production company, or Ford or P&G, and you're deploying it out to mid-tier markets, mid-sized companies that can actually leverage these platforms to communicate with their audiences. And then moving out past that, I don't think anybody really knows. I mean, 10 years ago, I couldn't buy an iPad. I didn't have a smartwatch. I couldn't ride in a self-driving car. I couldn't put on a headset. Like I couldn't do any of that stuff. And that was like 4,000 days ago. So I think that just putting that in that context, what I was doing 4,000 days ago versus what I'll be doing 4,000 days from now, I think is a good exercise to have perspective.
Yep, I agree for sure. Okay. Well, that kind of wraps up some of my questions. Do you all have any final thoughts? I have one last little final question to leave our viewers with for today. Otherwise, I think we had some good takeaways, and I hope marketers and everybody that's watching today got some good insights into how they could think about the chatbot technology, how they can implement into their strategy. My final question for John and James to chime in on is, for a digital marketing manager of a brand watching today, if you were to advise them on a technology that they should prioritize right now and how they can implement it, being the chatbot, what's the first step they should take in figuring out if they should actually explore this as a good opportunity for them, or leave it for now and come back to it in a couple of years?
So two things. First is, how are your customers communicating? Like, how has that evolved? So nobody is penning a letter to their aunt who lives overseas anymore, right? Just like everybody went from writing letters to calling on the phone to email to Skype to FaceTime, right? So things have evolved that way. So think about how your customers fit into that ecosystem. And then I think the second is, to John's point, is like, are you asking the right questions? So how are you what problem do you want chatbots to solve? And then where is it fitting in that customer journey? I think it can do one thing, and then you have to decide, is it at the awareness, consideration, purchase, loyalty, or advocacy stage? And then you probably have a better shot of being successful.
I 100%. If you're asking the right question, figuring out where you are, that's truly matters. And I think every sophisticated marketer today is thinking about that journey. They realize that that's the question. Where do I best get my efforts? And understanding voice is something that is on the mind of every marketer. You look at all the literature, the daily trades, everybody is thinking about it. So any brand is bringing people together, and they're asking the Jameses of the world, what should I be thinking about? What should I be doing?
I agree. All right. Well, that was all I have today. I want to leave the viewers with one last thought. We have 2 chatbot tools that we have explored and are working with here at Rogue. ChatFuel is one that we are working on. The interface is it's user-friendly. You have to really understand, like they've been talking about the whole episode, the customer journey, where you may be falling short in other areas like email or however else you're communicating with them. Because that's how you're going to set up the flows within this particular tool. Another one that I've heard good things about is ManyChat. They're really coming up the lane to ChatFuel and usability and ease of setup for just the everyday marketer. There's a lot of other tools out there that developers could get their hands wet in and really implement for their brands. But those are the 2 that I would leave you with to go check out if you're interested in adding that as a platform to talk to your customers. Otherwise, we thank you for joining us for another episode of While You're Working Live. We'll be here again next week at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, talking about another exciting topic. If you have any topics in mind that you'd love to hear about, please comment below, send us your feedback. We'd love to hear it. And as usual, we'll be posting a blog shortly with other resources on this topic of chatbots and just some other thoughts for you to consider as you're exploring this new technology. I want to thank my guests, James and John. You guys were great. Thank you for coming. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And I didn't scare you away from doing another Facebook Live with me.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Is that good?
That was awesome. I appreciate it. Sorry, I was trying to think of just different questions and angles to kind of ask you guys. I know it's not a topic all of us are super familiar with, but I think it was good insight and exactly what we're looking for.
By the way, ManyChat is the best. I mean,
Do you like ManyChat?
Yeah, I mean that's the one I'm most familiar with.
We've started with Chat Fuel because I was reading some articles and that was suggested. And honestly, and I went to this session at Social Media Marketing World and they were talking about the two, and they were also saying ManyChat was just a little bit easier to use as opposed to the Chat Fuel. Have you experienced that at all, or just kind of heard around the?
Well, thank you very much. Sorry about the initial confusion.
Oh no, that's okay. I totally get it. It's tough to get whenever you're doing these live streams. So I appreciate you hopping on and joining us today.
It's crazy to do. It's just a nightmare. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.